Testing, testing. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to end up welcoming you all to CoffeeCat Presents Austin by Starlight, Episode 2. Now, right now, CoffeeCat is dealing with some audio issues. We'll be back already and momentarily.
Yes, I have fixed the issue because OBS decided it did not want to use my audio settings.
Oh, good. I was worried I had to hijack your entire stream. And like, all right.
You'd be welcome to at this point.
Well, I'll leave the introductions to you then.
Welcome, everyone. Sorry for that technical difficulty and for the delay, but welcome to Austin by Starlight, Episode 2. And tonight, we're following a select couple of members of this particular little gang that's starting to form, and by the names of Alistair and Yvette. So far, first impressions are very middling amongst most of this coterie. The two Malkavians between them seem to be getting along pretty swimmingly, but it seems that everyone keeps the French woman and the Tremere at arm's reach. Given the fact that their clans are traditionally Camarilla, both are maybe a little suspect in this particular city, an Anarch city, one of two major cities that are Anarch titled in the state of Texas. The other of which being San Antonio, only about an hour and a half away. But with this sort of collection of anarchs between Austin and San Antonio, the rest being either Camarilla or God knows what, it sticks out in a way. But that is the greater plight of the state of Texas. No, we're more concerned with the individual lives or unlives of these kindred. Alistair, you have spent the night in this haven as you personally have invested so much of yourself into this place that having a separate place to sleep wasn't in the cards for you. A lot of your resources, a lot of your time, a lot of your developments have gone into making sure that this place is secure, that it is fully stocked with what it is that you need personally, as far as books and other sundry things. And with the help of Mr. Ball, you all have this place to call home once it's excised of its current inhabitants, aside from yourself. And as you rest for the day sleep, you feel exhausted waking, nearing almost a sort of restless sleep. If you could toss and turn, you'd be waking with an achy body, but the dead do not stir during the day. Instead, you're left to hear all of the noises, the clanging of metal in the house, the sound of heavy footsteps creaking wood. If it wasn't for the fact that you have slept here several times now and are fairly used to the goings on of the day sleep, that you'd almost be worried that someone was breaking into your home. In fact, I expect that there's been at least one night where the creaking has woken you from your day sleep in a panic, only to find out that there's nothing there, and thankfully the hallway was light proof, that you went straight back to your room and collapsed once more. But that doesn't make it any easier to get rest. But I would like both of you to make rouse checks as we begin this new night. Thankfully, the exhaustion that you may feel a little bit mentally, while mechanically it's not going to affect you. It is a good thing that when you stir when the sun goes down, the act of doing so does not make you any hungrier. You can be grateful for the small things, as you're sure that anyone mortal having to sleep through all of the noise that goes on in this house, the white noise, they probably would wake restless, antsy, irritated. But that little voice in the back of your mind, while only slightly agitated by the hunger that is ever present, it is not otherwise. Do you plan to do anything before any of your coterie mates arrive? If they decide to tonight?
There was a lead that I wanted to track down in the interim. Go and see if it bears fruit, but beyond that, I suppose just more research into this spirit that is making my nights a living hell.
Yes, you imagine that it would be a nuisance to bother with. Thankfully, it hasn't tried to kill you outright in your bedroom. But then again, you've put away everything that could potentially be used as a weapon against you in your room. It's pretty bare. Most everything is either locked in place or put away or other such things, as you know this particular ghost of an inhabitant is prone to throwing things across the room. You've even taken to boxing most of your books.
A shame, but a necessity.
But thankfully, those are in the library. So tell us a little bit about this lead that you're following.
Well, I've got word that a individual might have information on a book that I've been searching for of an older kindred. I'm not sure if this person is even real, but it is the only lead I have at the moment for what I'm searching for.
The early portion of the night, you get in contact with someone that you've been speaking with. The person who got you the lead. And upon following this lead a little bit further, it seems like a dead end. You might have to speak with others who might be a little more familiar with this kind of territory in order to get a more solid lead, as a mythology student isn't exactly the most promising of leads. But they did have quite the passion for their subject. They seem to be very enthused as you go to meet them on the campus about the goings on of the school, their master's thesis that they're coming up with. But most of that you already knew. Most of that you'd been studying most of your life already. And maybe it seems a little boring. But no new nuggets of truth. No new leads to follow. A bit of a bust. It's a shame, really.
Yes, it is a shame, but at least I know that I'm not the only one searching for the truth in these matters. It is refreshing to see some of the youth taking to it.
Usually Misha's leads are not this dull, though.
Yes, she usually they bear more fruit, but she never gives a lead without a reason.
But there is something else going on elsewhere, though. Yvette, you're waking for the evening. I would like you to make your browse check as well. Thankfully, not any hungrier, because what was it, only a night, maybe two ago, that you last fed upon Dale. You're muted, by the way.
It is true. 2 nights ago, I had fed upon him just before I ended up leaving the maison, house. At this exact moment, I awake into a strange snoring sound. And I have to remind myself that is the small recording I have of somebody sleeping on loop. I immediately check my surroundings, double checking that the door has remained locked. I look at the clock and end up laying in a bed for not more than another 2-3 minutes before the alarm starts to go off. In truth, the alarm is there to serve as a reason why I am waking, in case anybody is in the household. But it also ends up meaning that now I know when it is safe to end up turning off the recording for the snoring. A helpful tip when living amongst mortals, you want to incentivize that you have separate rooms at all times, and being impossible to end up sleeping near as you snore loud enough that one insists on insulating the door to avoid disturbing those who are currently in the house ends up helping greatly. I get out of bed and grab hold of my clothing for the day, including a vest for protection. Truthfully, the vest is not required, but it is something that I must end up bringing in order to explain some of my own activities. I, before, I've practiced the art of waking up groggy several times. I primarily study Dale when he wakes, but when I do so, I just simply give a half-hearted bonsoir, bonsoir, and walk right into the bathroom. I make it a point to have the water. I make it hotter than I think I would have done so in mortal life. Not because I need to shower, I no longer sweat. Oh, but I do need the heat. I warm my cold, dead skin with it. Just long enough so that a simple hug before I end up leaving the door and a kiss on the lips doesn't incur me having to use blood for blush of life, as I've already warmed myself, and I am usually immediately out the door with nothing more than my rifle case, my vest, and a simple goodbye. Or at the very least, physical contact is made extremely early, specifically to end up making sure to end up preserving my masquerade amongst Dale and his boy. I finish getting out of the shower and quickly dry off and dress. When I end up starting to end up leaving it, I give my customary greetings, as they know I work late nights, so I sleep during the day. To be fair, it takes quite a bit of my masquerade. It helps when you end up saying that because you do end up using firearms for your job, that you end up keeping your own door locked as well as the gun safe in your own room. It is, especially with one who is becoming of age, still in the house, I would hate to end up offering any form of temptation in that regard. I have no idea on how if it's going to end up causing problems later, but I have found various little things to end up assisting in my ability to end up preserving my masquerade while continuing on this little soiree.
He stops you just as you're about to leave out the door. Oh, you were doing that one gig tonight for that politician folk, that guy, right?
I am currently having to end up going on side duty. Hopefully, everything will end up going. I quickly embrace him, holding him tight and giving him a kiss as though I have just woken and that I am fresh as, what does the American say? Fresh as spring chicken. More so doing so to make sure that the heat, I don't give my body enough time to cool off from the shower to raise any alarms that I'm not quite so cold.
It's a pretty big deal, right? He says.
For them, absolutely. For myself, it is Tuesday.
I guess that just means that you're good at your job. It's it's not a gig that you could bring a +1, could you?
Unless I have to end up keeping things separate. When I'm on the job, I have to end up watching over everybody, and it would be very difficult for me to do so if I were to be distracted by particular assets. She kind of playfully smacks his backside in a flirtatious manner.
I just I don't get to see you very much anymore.
Well, this is what was when we ended up starting our relationship. I told you I had to continue to go out as much as I could, but I will end up making time. Don't you worry. Want to end up making sure that I can at least end up spending a night with you and Chris to end up being able to go out, grab some dinner, do something. Unfortunately, my employers, my contracts are often to workaholics, and so I must be as well.
Oh, well,
But I will make time for you, my love.
all right. Soon, I hope. And he gives you another kiss and goes back to fixing dinner for Chris.
Yeah. And Christopher, eat your vegetables. I don't want to end up hearing about you complaining about Brussels sprouts anymore.
Ew. You hear from
Fine.
the other room. You can see down the hall that his bedroom door is open. You can hear that he's got some kind of game going on.
Yeah. I never understood this Minecraft. But one would end up thinking that they would like, if they had time for digging in artificial dirt, they might end up actually getting a part-time job and helping. They'll put so much time trying to prove his independence. Single fatherhood is a terrible situation. I understand why it is that we are a thing. I also end up worrying because I know that he is, while grateful for me providing as I do, truthfully, I hope that it does not diminish him or his son. It's difficult at times because I end up looking at Chris and I do not know if it is me or if it is the nature of our condition. But I hope at one point he will end up being something like my son. Alas, I am simply the woman that his father is fucking at this point. But let us hope that can change. If not tonight, some night.
And shortly before you leave, Chris does get up from his room and starts to go out towards the kitchen because the food is starting to the scent of the food starting to kind of waft over the whole house, and he kind of walks past you.
I
Hey,
make it a point to end up grabbing hold of I grab hold of a single item, something that is quick that I can just pop into my mouth along the way. Not that I intend to, but at the very least that I are aware that I'm taking care of myself. Chris, tell me, are you still diggy diggy? What is the song that you were listening to? You're some kind of dwarf in the game?
No, no, I play modded Minecraft, where it's got like a bunch of other. I don't think you'd get it. You don't
No.
seem. You don't. Yeah. Uh, you don't seem like the type who plays video games anyway. So you know.
No. Though I have been told I apparently need to end up looking at Call of Duty, but I end up using guns in real life. Why would I want to end up doing so for my entertainment when I can end up going out to the range?
He
Perhaps
did.
we should take you sometime.
He just shrugs. I, I, I don't have any interest in guns, honestly.
A young American man with no interest in guns. What is this country coming to? She says a little bit mockingly. It's kind of a wink and nod. All right, Chris.
He just kind of
I will.
seems to cringe at that a little bit.
Oh,
just kind of walks away, kind of giggling a little bit. You're weird.
but I got you to smile. She kind of points to him for a minute, like, gotcha, and starts making her way out the door.
And he goes into the kitchen where he meets up with his father, and they have dinner.
I take hold of the small bit handful of Brussels sprouts when I end up driving and kind of take a moment as I end up heading out back to the haven. I cast them out onto the street and wipe my hands with the wet nap that I keep in the car. My case is in the back seat. The vest is worn underneath. I'll probably take that off for comfort later on. But they needed to see me leave with it. As I have learned, it is the little things that make these relationships work. I'm trying not to give anybody a chance to ask too many questions.
But you make your way towards the little house that Mr. Ball has so graciously appointed to you all. A strange one, that Mr. Ball, isn't he, Miss Yvette?
Monsieur Ball is a strange one indeed. I understand my own reasonings for leaving. Well, I personally was never truly a member of the Camarilla. During my time as a ghoul, I have witnessed several atrocity, several horror that end up haunting me. I said I wanted no part of that, and the moment my mind was my own, if only for a small amount, I ran. I've been running ever since, to be honest, and I find my head clearer. But then I also ask myself of all the things that I may have done, things I have involved myself with as I end up separating myself from my sire. It makes me wonder. And yet, right now, this one moment, not more than 15 minutes before I leave the door, that is mine. That is uniquely mine. I appreciate it all the more. Though I always wonder if Dale truly feels the way he does about me. Or if it is something else, the blood. Or maybe the kiss, I don't know. It terrifies me to end up wondering if it is completely false. If you were to know. But I will protect them in order to end up maintaining that. I must make sure he never knows what I truly am.
And so you drive away from your quaint little life, the uniquely yours life, making your way towards your other life, the stopping by the Coterie Haven to see if, of course, there are other members of your your party before making your way to your quote real job. And as you arrive, Alistair is already neck deep in books once more. It seems as he's begun to pile some of the things that he owns. Seems that he's got a few things open, cross referencing some things, it looks like.
I place my case upon the table beside, pop it open, and perform a weapons check before I end up going, making sure that while my case may not be completely at my side for this function, as Miss Pax Cosetta once earlier told me, something more pragmatic. And so I am currently also here checking on this Glock 9mm, making sure that it is lubed, safetied, double checking that it will not dry fire or anything of the such, as I begin to end up putting on the appropriate holster and actually start removing my vest for the meantime as I set up, looking over at what it is that Monsieur Knight is currently here working upon, and the thing that ends up seeming to be making him frustrated.
Alistair will be going through books, trying to figure out a solution to their ghost problem, but not really bearing any fruit. Still annoyed at the dead end that he found tonight. Before he probably notices Yvette even has joined him.
I was worried I wouldn't be interrupting if I were to end up wishing you a bonsoir. You hear as the slide of the Glock ends up going back into place, now loaded and ready to be used, holstered under her jacket in the shoulder holster.
Oh, not at all.
What is it that you are currently here looking over this evening, Monsieur Knight? Is it more to do with our little specter of a house geese?
Yes, it is not bearing fruit though. I do not have enough research materials. I might have to talk to that person at some point. The doctor.
I
But
believe Mademoiselle here Cosetta and Deja are currently trying to get a signal on that, is it not?
I believe so. I have not spoke with them tonight, but I figure that stands to reason that that's where they are.
Know a person's truest of intent, and you will know exactly where they are as you need them. She is finally ready as she's dressed up. You can see that she's dressed significantly nicer. Her outfit is somewhat professional, but a little bit more revealing, perhaps, than one might initially assume, and given Yvette's generally professional demeanor. So what about this can we assist with? You
Oh,
said something about a contact and that we must end up going to, or you must end up finding them. I myself end up finding myself needing to soon get ready as I have a particular client this evening.
oh, the contact I went to find, that didn't bear fruit as well. It's kind of frustrating, really.
What is it that you are seeking from this contact?
Oh, well, thinking for a moment of, oh, I hate to sound cliche, but another book that has great meaning to me.
If
A,
it has great meaning to you, then it must be important.
yes, I believe it would be, but that's,
That's what.
sorry, I was lost in thought for a moment. Yes,
Careful, you'll never be found again.
if, uh, if I were to find it, it would teach me so much.
About our particular ghost problem.
No, other interests of mine. I've have many irons in the fire, as it were.
Perhaps too many?
Always.
How may I assist you in that? What sort of book are you looking for? If it is not to deal with our ghost problem, then what is it?
Storyteller, correct me
Hmm.
if I'm wrong, but Tremere stuff is usually kept secret, right?
Very secret. And if you were to, say, for instance, find a notebook or something of the sort of a Tremere, it's likely that that Tremere has gone to ash, and most of their knowledge with them, unless, of course, again, you were to find said writings.
Oh, this is more of a personal thing, a hobby of mine that from when I was still yet human.
And yet it is keeping you distracted from the course. Perhaps we should end up having that solved immediate. No.
If it were that easy, I do not know the next area that I could find this.
Then perhaps, Monsieur, you here should end up joining me for the evening.
Oh, I would be delighted.
There is a +1, and I am willing to end up doing so, so long as you end up dressing yourself in a manner that doesn't end up saying that you have spent the past 20 years in a basement doing nothing but reading and staying away from modern society.
Yes, I have a few nicer suits as instead of the comfortable things I'm wearing now. If
That is comfortable.
For me, I I'm used to dressing a certain way. It was expected of me growing up. It is as comfortable as I was allowed to be, as it were.
I am very familiar with this, Monsieur Knight. I am very familiar with this. Well, perhaps you should get ready. Join me in a vehicle, and we shall end up heading out. I am already prepared for the evening. but might I end up requesting that you do not dawdle, as time is very important to me at this moment.
Yes, it should not take me very long at all. And Alistair will excuse himself and go put on one of his nicest suits and join Yvette when he is done, after perhaps putting a little notebook and a pen in his pocket and a pocket knife.
I find Monsieur Knight as she heads into the car and waits for him to enter, placing, of course, her case in the trunk, locked tight. Mm. I find that it helps to end up, at the very least, being aware of the interests of particular clients. And tonight might be of particular interest to you when you are dealing with certain social groups. You will find that there is overlap. In this case, you are looking for a book of similarity. Oui?
Oui,
Ah, très bien. She seems genuinely excited that you end up responding like that. So that means that we must end up going to somebody who has the ability to do so and the inclination to end up knowing individuals who may also do so. And I've known more than a few collectors of various things. She might be having flashbacks of her sire at this moment, where they will go to great lengths to end up making sure they end up acquiring such things. And I would very much hazard to guess that they end up having far more resources and investment than you do in a haunted house.
uh,
I make it a point to end up going, driving directly to the location where this little soiree is going to be taking place. I try and end up double checking myself in the mirror in order to be sure that I am presentable, and I will make it a point to end up explaining to those that Monsieur Knight is a guest that I have been allowed to end up bringing to such an event. My only regret is it was not there.
Too bad. Would you make your way towards a little section of the downtown area to a hotel? A hotel that you're fairly familiar with, one that has a fairly large convention center, where you know a few members of the higher society in the greater Austin area have been known to throw an event from time to time. Notably, as such, your good friend Randall Pendrum has made it fairly frequent that he has these kinds of events. It's important these nights and days that he start to garner more support for the coming year's senatorial elections.
Pardon, the engine, it needs to be looked at. It keeps choking out on occasion.
But you both arrive, and it's filled with a number of people who are dressed rather well, not overtly, like overly done, but still fine enough that it seems like a more official event than it is a public gathering, for instance. More of the fundraising efforts, the finding of charitable organizations and or individuals who might be particularly generous, given that the given that things are going to start heating up as much as they do for local politicians.
And well, after parking my vehicle and escorting Monsieur Knight towards the side door, as I am responsible for him upon entry, I continue to end up walking alongside him as we end up getting to the appropriate meeting spot. I've made sure to the local security that I have arrived, and so it is time for me to end up meeting with my client and being able to explain the situation about Monsieur Knight, and well, end up taking it from there. We
Alistair will kind of just follow Yvette like a step behind to her, flanking her left or right, and just try to follow her lead.
Which, Yvette, you are definitely able to catch that your friend Randall is present. He's making small talk and making the rounds, and it seems that he's shaking hands with a number of individuals, some of which you're certain you may have actually talked to once or twice before, given that he's regularly on the payroll side of your little job, as it were. People that he's met before, others that he's meeting for the first time, and on the occasion you see him stop, but when he catches that you've arrived, he looks genuinely excited to see you. He smiles and kind of puts out a hand to shake. Ah, Miss LaCroix, right? Right.
we I am going to rouse blush of life. Lucked out.
Success.
And I proceed to end up shaking his hand in a courteous manner. Oui, Monsieur Pendrum, it's good to end up seeing you once again. I trust the evening has been going well for you?
Actually, rather well. I've, well, I don't want to bore you about the specifics, but it's been a fairly, successful night so far.
I have no doubt that this will end up assisting in your campaign and near future endeavors. I wish to end up wishing you congratulations then upon the evening. But, Monsieur Pendrum, allow me to end up introducing you to Monsieur Knight. Monsieur Knight, allow me to introduce you to Mr. Randall Pendrum, Senator, and a good colleague and employer of mine.
Pleasure to meet you.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, Mr. Pendleton.
Knight. I think I've heard that it's a fairly common name, but you're not the first knight that I've seen tonight, if that makes sense.
That is interesting.
Oh, sounds like we should end up seeing the other and end up seeing if there is a relation, Monsieur Knight.
You do
But
kind of look like him. Are you You wouldn't be related to William Knight, Professor William Knight, would you?
Uh, hmm, Give me 1 second. Just double checking my notes. Yes. Yes, that would be my father.
Oh, fantastic! That's he's good guy, Mr. Professor William Knight. He's actually been very generous tonight as far as his time uh, and of course he has quite a bit of sway in the university. I'm actually rather excited to have met two of you now.
Magnifique. In fact, we are here on. I have asked Monsieur Knight to end up joining me as he is inquiring on something of more of an academic level and
Oh,
something that I think maybe a few of your supporters may be able to assist him with. I'm simply here to end up making introductions and wishing Monsieur Knight the best of luck in his own pursuits. But we are looking for collectors of rare vintage books and memoirs. It is things that are very difficult to end up finding in that regard, especially if stuff you would not find in universities. Hence the reason Professor Knight has not been the one we ended up contacting.
um, collectors of things that you wouldn't normally find in things like museums and libraries and the like, right?
Ah,
That's
yes. Rare book collection. I end up hearing that it is a fascinating hobby amongst those of the more affluent. So, of course, this would be the place where I would like to end up going. Uh, but at this exact moment, Monsieur Knight, I must end up ending my conversation with you at this exact moment, as I am here under Monsieur Pendrum's employ. And so I must end up beginning to perform my duty.
Oh, but of course, it is. I'm sure that I can mingle and make the rounds. Uh,
But, Monsieur Pendrum, do you have any particular individual in mind that Monsieur Knight can end up meeting and perhaps courting to end up taking a peek at the collection?
I did meet a very interesting individual tonight, actually. Someone I've not met before, but he's well, let's just say his interests are eccentric. Maybe that's what you're looking for.
uh, Certainly would not be born.
And
You've
of
had,
course, your father is here too, somewhere. He kind of looks around the rest of the room. I just seem to have lost him.
and as he does so, Yvette's doing her standard fare. She's observing, looking for potential hidden weapons, intent. She's now at Mr. Pentrum's right side, performing her active duty.
In that in that case, I would like you to make me a proper roll for that. Do you have a hidden weapon specialty in either awareness or in insight?
Unfortunately, not just yet. That is something saving experience for.
Fair enough. Then wits, insight, or awareness, your choice, depending on flavor.
Um, let's do insight. I'm more concerned about intent than capability right now. I will willpower that.
Okay.
It was not great, but 2 out of 7 dice is pretty average roll for Derek.
If you've got him, put the Derek dice in chat. Uh, in looking throughout the room, it's a pretty wide convention center kind of space. It's mostly taking up a lot of the the kind of banquet hall in this particular hotel. In that, there are a number of people surprisingly here that in the time that you have been doing this job, for instance, you've seen that more and more that Randall's ability to speak, his ability to kind of garner support has been growing and growing over the last few years that you've known him. That by proxy he seems to be becoming more and more important, in which you've on more than one occasion had to deal with some rather pesky non-supporters, to put it mildly. You don't deal with any of the things that he might get in emails or in social media, things like that. No, you're more of the actual presence of protection that he seems to has created a rather fond business relationship. He thinks of you as you have over time. He thinks of you more as a friend that he pays, more than just a simple employee. He's confided in you on several occasions, and well, whether you've confided in him any is up for you to decide. But in times when his faith in his own abilities has wavered, you've been there to kind of give him a little bit of a boost when he needed it.
It is my job to end up ensuring the well-being of my employer, and sometimes that ends up not just discussing the physical. And right now, I am mostly end up concerned with, well, I can only end up hoping that Monsieur will end up doing well by his estate and his city. But at this exact moment, I am more concerned with his physical well-being.
And when you do look around, you're not seeing anyone that seems particularly pesky in interest at the moment. You're consistently keeping your eyes out, but for the moment, it doesn't look like anything of any note is happening at the moment.
This is part of the job. Honestly, most evenings you stand around and be just a little bit of candy. But fact of the matter is that you are not there when things go well. You are there to be there when things do not. As such, I am trying to end up remaining focused. One can only end up hoping that when it all ends up here, when everything ends up going happy, we'll be able to end up making sure that everybody gets to go home safe. But once I have more of an establishment of Monsieur Pendrum's safety, I will make it a point to listen in on the various conversations that he is having, perhaps to get a lead or to get a better understanding of what is going on amongst those of this particular social class.
And so Randall puts out his arm so that you could take it in the sort of arm candy fashion and starts to.
I sure to end up making sure that he takes the arm that I do not need to end up drawing my pistol should it be required.
Mm-hmm. And we stand on the appropriate side of him. So, what'd you think?
I think you have outdone yourself, monsieur. I am hoping to end up seeing that everything ends up remaining calm, but I do hope that this evening is not end up going to your head. I cannot end up flying once your ego has taken you away.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I I'd be
You,
I'd be satisfied just serving this city and the state as best as I could.
one can hope. You will do fine. You're a pragmatic man. You are a person who understands well enough to end up seeing the larger picture while not forgetting the roots of your city. It is trying to build a skyscraper without the firm foundation of concrete. In this case, you are simply laying down foundation. Just don't forget the importance of doing so. I will be here alongside you, monsieur, as I always am. She gives his arm a little bit of a squeeze, maybe more of an elbow into the side, and like straighten up.
You see him kind of. You see his back go a little bit straighter, and he kind of fiddles a little bit with the tie around his neck. Alistair, what are you doing at the moment?
Did this man give me a name for this person?
No, he did not,
He did
and
not.
that was on purpose from Yvette, because that means you got to do something.
Alistair would just start making the rounds, making small talk, finding out who does what their interests are, why they're here, making polite small talk, trying to find this person that is into the collection of books.
Okay. First off, I want a charisma persuasion.
I will I will spend the willpower for that because I want to make a good impression upon these people.
Okay. Or I could let you succeed at a cost.
Do I get to know the cost?
You're gonna run into somebody you don't want to run into.
Yeah, I figured that was going to happen anyway, so I will succeed at a cost.
I mean, it didn't have to go that way, but okay.
Party is only so big, and I know he's here.
So you make your way through the the different people. You start to flag down a little bit of those people who seem to be a little bit more well-to-do than than possibly others. You spot you spot some people with some rather nice like jewelry and little trinkets and things. Nothing to say that they are overtly of wealth, but to kind of give a hint, whereas others might be wearing something a little bit more economical.
It's the little details, the watch, the cufflinks,
Mm-hmm.
that you can notice.
And it's the cufflinks of a particular individual that you spot, that you that your eyes land on. He's a taller man, maybe a little taller than you. He has jet black hair, a sort of well groomed but full beard. His suit is of a lighter color, but his cufflinks are distinctly dark. And that's that contrast is probably what drew your eyes to it, because that's a little detail that seem to not many people in this particular venue anyway seem to have taken the time to do. And as your eyes fall on them, they from a distance seem fairly just odd. They're just odd, and you're not entirely sure why. And so when you approach this individual, it's the cufflinks that you're staring at rather than him. And before you really have an idea of who it is that you're looking at, you're you're just a little bit intrigued by the cufflinks on this man. And he notices that you're staring at them, and he kind of looks at them himself. Something I can help you with?
Ah, yes, forgive me. I was just doing my rounds and I noticed your cufflinks. I've never seen something of them before, and I just wanted to introduce myself and maybe perhaps make some polite conversation.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr.
I'm Alistair Knight.
Jesse Kane.
Ah, Mr. Kane. This is a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Finally.
May I ask about their design and what they're made of?
It's a bit of a rare find. You have a keen eye. They're Alexandrite. Real Alexandrite. And Alistair, upon hearing that, you know that real Alexandrite is rare. Very rare. In this color, that's unique.
Ah, yes, that would explain it. It's very rare. I knew something about them called to me, and they were special in some way. I had to understand them. Sorry, forgive me.
How very
And
typical. And he just kind of smiles at you, kind of grinning a little bit.
May I ask what brings you here tonight?
Same as you, I would imagine. He takes a sip from a glass that he's been holding.
That would be interesting.
Would it?
Yes.
Tell me, why are you here?
Well, I am a professor of Egyptian culture and occult studies, and I am here because a friend of mine said that I might be able to meet some like minded people here to discuss maybe perhaps trading or selling information or rare books.
Hmm,
It's a somewhat of a hobby of mine.
interesting. A little bit. Well, one can't assume much about another individual, now can they? But you're interested in the trade of rare antiquities and the like. Tell me, what makes you think that others here would have the sort of antiquities you're looking for?
Oh, just like I said, a hunch of a friend.
Hmm.
And you always have to keep your eye out for such things. And such like minded people. Networking is important.
Hmm.
And, well, frankly, you will always miss the shot you don't take. So it is,
Ah,
the
touche.
very least, I will have a pleasant evening meeting some interesting people. At
At least you would
worst,
hope.
and yes, he'll chuckle a little bit and take a sip of his drink, and um, at
You have
best, I
not
might.
blush a life.
Oh, I will blush of life.
Okay. That'll be the one time I remind
Sorry.
you. Otherwise, if you take a drink before you do so, you will instantly vomit ash.
Ooh,
Which you are not any hungrier for doing so. But it tastes like it tastes gross. It's disgusting. It is ashy going all the way down.
a shame. I rather enjoy the good scotch or bourbon.
Well, your best bet for finding those who would be far more interested in the looking at of of things that are a bit rare. You know, the antique, the odd painting, that sort of thing. A museum seems more your style, my friend.
This is true, but
This is a political event.
yes, like as I said, I'm always keeping my eye out for such things.
Hmm.
But at the very least, it usually provides a interesting conversation for people that don't really know much about it. It seems exotic and somewhat strange to the quote unquote normal people.
Hmm. So you want to seem exotic to normal people?
I think my pursuit of knowledge is sets me apart from a normal person. I have a voracious hunger for knowing things.
Hmm. Your name has actually come up, kind of circling in the circles that I tend to frequent. You're a professor at the university, are you not?
Yes.
Huh. Interesting. So bold. How do you get around to making curriculum every day? I've known professors who do the night shift and couldn't really keep it up for more than a semester.
Oh, I tend to always be a night owl.
Hmm.
I, with today and the online classes, much of it is preparing things in advance. Things kind of help run themselves. The
Hmm.
odd grading of papers or live sessions are fewer in between, plus a TA or two helps. It is enjoyable, but not too taxing.
Hmm. Well, I suppose. I suppose. Honestly, I don't like computers.
They can serve a purpose, but I will admit I prefer a good old book instead. Something about paper and a physical medium.
I love the
It's a
smell of old
finality.
books.
Yes.
What's the oldest one you've smelled?
Hmm. Some of the tomes that we have, I think, in our restricted sections, probably 15th century?
Oh, come now. Come
I
now.
don't know.
Come now. I'm not talking about the the university's collection. I'm talking about your personal collection. You did say that you were interested in both the trade and the purchase of such things.
Okay, storyteller, what would my oldest tome be? Far back am I allowed to go with this?
Hmm. I'm gonna call that a charisma academics plus library.
Okay.
We're getting into weird roles here, friends.
Hey, it makes it fun though.
Because this is something that you would have done in the past. And you
You know
probably.
what? I will, to impress this man, I will rouse the blood for this role.
Okay. Okay.
Ooh. You know what? I'll spend the willpower.
You are meaning to make the big impressions.
Yes. So only 5 successes.
Okay. Your personal collection has one original from the 15th century. Not a copy, an original. And because the library deals mostly in the sort of dealings of magic, it is an old original notebook on witchcraft. It's nearly falling to pieces, and the ink is nearly faded, but it's there.
Could I make this flavor and say that it might have been connected to the Salem witch trials?
Absolutely.
Ah, excellent. Well, my personal library, I have one such tome that it's a personal diary, and I would say you could call it a grimoire of a witch from around the 15th to 16th century, around Salem.
Oh. You see that his eyebrows kind of perk at the thought of that. No.
Yes,
You're
it's original.
you're joking, right?
Of course not.
He kind of looks you up and down. You.
As I said, I'm a voracious consumer of knowledge, and I've been studying mythology and the occult for most of my life. It has been a passion and hobby, and I turned a career out of it, following in my father's footsteps, as it were, and at least in the mythology aspect.
Fathers. There is another Professor Knight.
Yes, I believe he is here somewhere. A William Knight, older man, stern face. You can't miss him.
Hmm. How peculiar. But strangely, it doesn't surprise me at all. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Of course. Of course. Of course. That makes far much more sense now. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
A
Well,
little quid pro quo. What is the oldest in your collection? And I'll give a kind of wry smile, just assuming that with his interest, he might have something interesting.
oh, I don't know that it would suit any of your interests. I mean, I hardly know you. But one thing I will tell you is I know a man whom the rumors say has the oldest known notes from a prince of North America.
That does sound interesting.
he says prince with a little bit of emphasis, like he's intending for you to catch something from it.
Can I insight check and see if I can glean
Yeah.
what he's trying to see if I can pick up what he's putting down?
Yeah.
If he's talking about the same kind of prince I'm thinking.
Go ahead. Wits insight.
Not my best roll, but that'll do, pig.
Perhaps this is the first time that you're actually considering, is this person mortal? To your knowledge, there was no monarchy of the United States. Not that didn't come from England, anyway. So a prince of North America is... Is he meaning something Camarillo? Couldn't be. Who is this guy?
A prince, you say? That is very interesting.
Oh, it's a rumor. I've not actually seen the... Well, it is in... No, I did say it was my friend's collection. I'm sorry. But it is rumored to have come from that person, and yes, I have in fact smelled it.
Ah. As you said, there is nothing better than the smell of an old book. You can feel the history.
One day. One day I'll manage to give him the right price for it, but sadly that day has not been in recent past.
I'd be interested to meet this man at some point.
Oh.
Of course. I'm sure you would have to get to know me a little bit better before you would introduce me to friends.
Of course. And two friends whom probably I don't think you would want to meet.
Well, as I said, I would probably be willing to meet just about anybody for the right reason. And the old knowledge and books are definitely up there among the reasons that I would meet just about anyone.
Well, it's been quite some time since I've actually spoken with this person, actually. Quite a number of decades, actually. Who even knows if they're still around? Which would be a real shame. He had quite a collection.
Yes, that would be a shame.
But, all that being said, yes, I would have to get to know you before I even gave you a peek at some of the things in my collection. No, I think you would be paying rent for 100 years at least. Kind of looks at you with a bit of a sly smile. It'd be
Well,
practically a lifetime.
all good things to those who wait.
I suppose so.
Besides,
Are you a patient man, Mr. Knight?
when it suits me, I I get what I can when I can, but for the right things, even someone I would wait for as long as it takes for the right things.
Hmm. Good to know.
And I'll kind of reach into my pocket and pull out a business card. I've monopolized much of your time tonight. I do not wish to take it all up. Please don't hesitate to be in contact. It would be interesting to talk to more about old books and many other topics at some point.
Oh,
I have a
don't you worry.
feeling.
Don't you worry. I know where to find you. And with that, he starts to walk from the crowd, or walk from the somewhat private conversation that you're having, and starts walking out towards the rest of the crowd.
Just for my notes, what was this man's name again?
Jesse Kane.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Perfectly fine. Yvette, is there anybody particularly interesting that you're talking to right now? Or that Mr. Pendrum is talking to right now?
I have, sorry, I have no doubt that Mr. Pentrom has been making the rounds, and I have been paying attention to whoever it is that he ends up approaching. I more often than not will not end up initiating the discussion, as I am simply there to end up observing for Mr. Pentrum's safety. If I were to end up suggesting mod, I certainly would love to end up saying bonsoir to Professor Knight, because that would maybe a little bit of useful information. I am also a little bit curious as to some of the larger donors to his campaign. I would like to end up knowing exactly who he ended up getting in bed with. But outside of that, my job here is fairly simple, and I wish to end up abiding by said contract.
He does occasionally talk with a few people that seem of particular note. One of which is a man with black hair and a beard, with a somewhat lighter colored suit and very dark cufflinks. A man who calls himself Jesse Kane.
And that name would mean quite a bit to me, if I recall.
If you recall. Who does seem to be a heavily invested in the career path of Mr. Pendrum. It seems that they seem to share a lot in common, that there's a lot of the same principles and values that seem to line up in this particular case. that. And Mr. Kane seems to be of. He seems a bit odd, but overall friendly, at least in this particular setting. And upon traversing the crowd, he occasionally cycles back to Professor Knight, whom he shares a conversation with, that Mr. Knight is not here as a representative of the university itself, but more as a personal project.
I would certainly enjoy having a conversation with them both, if such things were to be arranged. I no doubt that Mr. Pendrum would be wishing to end up inciting more investors into his particular course,
Mm-hmm.
and I will certainly end up assisting in whatever ways I can. But I will also make it a point to try and end up reminding him to showcase appreciation to those who have already rallied to his cause, or those who may be close to doing so. I would certainly wish to end up assisting him in this endeavor. Oui?
All right. How do you intend to do so?
Well, at first, I would like to end up getting a better sense of what these individuals are looking for when they end up coming across this path. This will be in the form of Monsieur Kane and then Professor Knight, not to be confused with Monsieur Knight.
It definitely seems that there's a lot of lineup when it comes to what Mr. Kane is saying that he's a believer in, as far as sharing a particular value when it comes to Mr. Pendrum's kind of political platform, that that education is of high importance, that things are you know that things really kind of start in that particular area, and that having a wealth of knowledge is always a good thing. And so he's definitely aligned in Mr. Pendrum's kind of value system, that Mr. Pendrum also believes the same thing and is looking to increase the likelihood that people will be better educated over time. And they kind of go over the specifics on what the plans are over time, what he can do as a senator, what he can do for the state of Texas, that sort of thing. And so, and the same is true of Professor Knight, because they're in the education field.
I will make it a point to approach first Professor Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd make sure that I am always facing Randall. It's very clear where my eyes are. Observing for any threats, I make sure that I am always close enough to react appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to end up approaching this individual. A soft smile that ends up crossing my lips as I look over the man. Certainly, he has a look about him that would remind me much of Alistair.
Very similar.
Bonsoir, Professor Knight. I hope that your evening is going well.
Good evening. And you are?
I am Yvette Lacroix. A an associate of Monsieur Pendrum.
Pleasure to meet you.
And pleasure to end up meeting you. I end up wishing to extend hospitality as I end up hearing that you have come all this way to end up hearing Monsieur Pendrum and what he has to say. Hopes that you will end up continue or help to support his campaign.
Mm. Yes.
I also found it fantastic when I ended up hearing that I would have the opportunity to end up meeting William Knight of the university.
Mm. Mhm.
As
Yes.
And tell me, Monsieur, how is your son doing?
My
I
son.
was told that you. I was told that you had a child. Is he? What is he? A young lad or?
You're probably meaning Alistair, yes?
Weak. I've only made casual acquaintance, but when I end up hearing, I was pretty sure that you had a relation, and as the moment that I ended up seeing your face, I knew it had to be true.
Yes, well, it kind of clears its throat a little bit. Alistair and I are not on speaking terms.
C'est terrible. Why ever not? I apologize. It breaks my heart when I end up hearing that Femi is not on speaking terms.
His choice, not mine.
But you must always keep that door open. It is a responsibility of a father. Absolute.
Well, you can tell him that if he wants to, he knows how to call home.
I think
Our
I will.
number hasn't changed in 35 years. I don't think it's changing anytime soon.
That is good. You should end up being proud of such things. I know that many who would not. I see you a man of character.
As much as I wanted my boy to be a man of character, yes.
Yeah, I end up feeling the same about my child.
Do you have a kid?
My situation is a little bit more difficult. He is not mine per se. So you can imagine on how it is when you are a replacement mama. I still don't know on how to end up really reaching him, but I look at him and I hope someday that may change. Perhaps it's projecting, but I always hold out hope that one day he will call. I think you feel the same in some way. I apologize. I did not mean to end up offending nor end up drawing out.
Your pleasantries are appreciated, but I think my personal life is, frankly, none of your business.
Absolument. I guess I was excited to end up meeting what I hope to be a friendly face, and now I have embarrassed myself. How unfortunate. I guess that explains why it is that you are coming here, if not on the university's behalf, but upon your own. Me and Monsieur here, Pentrum here, share many similar values as well.
Well, that we can agree upon. Because there's
Have I
nothing
said
I would
any-
like better than for this city to be better.
As would I. But I offer, I have to admit, on occasion I find myself at a loss as to what would constitute the qualifications of better. I instead end up holding hope that an individual is capable of pursuing their own path. A individual is to be educated and then to be consistently reading into the fates that they have currently portrayed. I'm sorry, English is not my first language, as I'm sure you can tell.
Whatever gave it
She
away, he said sarcastically.
Perhaps it's the haircut.
Perhaps.
And at that point, what's insight?
Go for it.
Did I just crack him a little bit? Did I just get him to drop his guard and not be as standoffish?
You cracked a little bit of a smile. You're a joker.
I try. My own upbringing was one very regimented. So I find myself being amused when I have an opportunity to speak my mind or lose it. I don't know.
I gave him a
But
very regimented and a very good upbringing, if that is what I take your meaning for.
not at all. I actually moved on from that topic as it was making you uncomfortable. And I did not mean to put it on your mind. I am thinking more akin to my own. And yet, for you, monsieur, I wish to end up extending a little bit of hospitality. I will end up passing along your message and even say nothing more about it, should the need arise.
Thank you.
It was more of an excitement of meeting someone who was related to an acquaintance. And yet it has been marred by ill feelings that, fortunately, I had no involvement in. I was unaware that it was such a sore spot. And I'm sorry for misbehaving in such a way. It is incredibly...
You know, it doesn't surprise me at all that he wouldn't talk about me.
Yvette doesn't say anything. She just kind of lets him have a moment to vent. Like she's making it very clear she's proactively listening to him.
But he knows how to call home. I have other people to speak to. And he abruptly starts to walk away.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I will end up returning to Mr. Pentrum and continue to make his routes until Let us just say that there is this Monsieur Kane that is of interest.
And eventually it does cycle back to Mr. Kane. Kind of them both giving each other handshakes and exchanging pleasantries, and he kind of looks over to you and says, "And you are?"
Je m'appelle Yvette Lacroix.
Ah, Miss LaCroix.
And you are the famed Jesse Kane.
I don't know if famed is how I would put it, but
Among circles that we both frequent, I think that would be the most appropriate. Oui.
I suppose.
It's such a pleasure to meet you.
And it's a pleasure to finally meet you, Miss LaCroix.
She gives a small head nod. I would feel remiss if I did not at least end up having an opportunity to end up meeting you, Monsieur Kane. Especially given how highly Monsieur Pendulum has ended up speaking of you.
Yes, we've had chats about plans and the difference this and that, and
I would love to be involved in those conversations. Perhaps if a time can be arranged where we can also end up exchanging such ideas. If it's at your convenience, of course.
when it's convenient, I'll seek you out.
I try to end up keeping myself available during most evenings. As all these functions happen so late, because the day is so overbooked.
Isn't it just? He just kind of gives you a smile. Had an interesting conversation with somebody who might, I don't know, kind of circle the same drain, as it were. You wouldn't happen to know him, would you? That gentleman right over there, and he kind of points in Alistair's direction.
Ah, oui. Monsieur Knight. I, in fact, have a few dealings with him, and we are to continue on forward. In fact, he is my guest this evening.
Ah, surprised he's not following your coattails.
Ah, it is my job to end up following Monsieur Pendrum, not for him to do so. He is simply allowed to end up enjoying the rest of the evening. However, I'm afraid I am currently disposed as being at Monsieur Pendrum's service.
And Randall kind of looks over to you. Oh, come now, Yvette. You can mingle a little bit. You don't have to stay directly and right beside me. You could line of sight is always fine, right?
Well, Monsieur Kane, you seem to be an educated man. I imagine you are very aware of oddities and statistics. We
I try to make a habit of it. Yeah.
interesting point. Within 30 feet, a knife can be drawn and thrust into an individual before a pistol can be drawn. So while line of sight may be accurate, trying to end up pushing people out of the way, not having people run across, and being able to react appropriately is not capable at this exact time. I'm responsible for your safety, Monsieur Pendrum, and I am very good at my job.
And this is why I paid you the big bucks, because you're the one who's the knowledgeable one in that regard, and I'm just the politician.
You are the voice of our people. Hey.
Well,
We end
come
up
election day,
supporting.
maybe.
Well, I have no doubt that we know who we're voting for in that regard. He looks to Baron Kane.
And do you see that Kane also gives a bit of a nod?
But as on the politique, I am glad to have I have finally had a chance to discuss with you, Monsieur Kane, managing to meet pleasantries, and I hope at the very least that the rest of the evening will treat you fantastic. I look forward to the night where we can end up the city and discussing this city's future.
When are you free next?
I make myself available. If you wish, I can end up doing so as soon as Monsieur Pendrum is no longer requiring my service. If it would entertain you.
Alright. I believe I know where to find you and your acquaintances. Maybe I'll drop by.
It would be an honor to end up hosting you for the rest of the evening.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Miss LaCroix. And Mr. Pendrum. And you see that Baron Kane starts to say his goodbyes to, maybe a couple of other people. Say a few hellos to some others and kind of mingle around the rest of the room until such a time that the room and himself all kind of clear out.
I am currently grateful that I am dead and not having a heart attack, as just being around the Baron ends up causing me no end of worry. I can only hope that there is a certain level of forgiveness, as we are both forced to end up upholding the masquerade amongst all these kind. But then again, despite me spending so much time around a politician, I am no politician.
But you both collect back together once you've done a little bit of mingling, and Yvette, you've been relieved of your duties as Mr. Pendrum has his driver escorting him home. And you're free for the remainder of the evening. It's somewhere around 2 in the morning by this point, as it is definitely grown late, and things are definitely wound down, and you're free to do as you please from here.
That was certainly an evening.
Alistair, I think she was addressing you.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought you two were still talking. I'm sorry.
We are, and it includes you.
Ah, I didn't know you
Hello.
made your way over to me.
Well, the evening is coming to a close. And I have just finished seeing Monsieur Pendrum out the door. And I wish for you to end up hearing good news. I also have a message to deliver to you. One that I suppose you will not want to hear, but you're going to hear it anyway because it was requested of me to send it.
Well, I won't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, that's a shame. My vest is currently in the trunk of my car. I wish to end up with. I am told to tell you that the line hasn't changed in 30 years.
The lie.
You can end up calling him whenever you like. I believe that's all I need to say.
Hmm.
I was not aware that you were not on speaking terms with your father.
Yes, our relationship is strained, to put it mildly.
He seems to be willing to end up hearing you whenever you do call. For some odd reason, you do not.
That is a story for another time that I do not wish to unpack tonight.
Well, I did not wish to pry. It was simply a message, and that lack of information has cost me a small deal.
Sorry.
So that ended up becoming my problem. I'm going to presume that it's not something I was forewarned about ahead of time, after you already knew that the Professor Knight was already here.
I should have warned you about him. He can be difficult.
I think what I ended up seeing was a loving father who ended up seeing his boy and he spurned him, and yet if he did not care, he would not end up having that line. He would change it and write it off, yet he still waits for you. But none of my business. I hope you managed to end up getting in touch with some who might have connections to some rarities to your
I
liking.
I did meet some interesting people. It might bear fruit, but overall, it was still a pleasant evening. Thank you for bringing me.
Of course. And she kind of leads and goes, also, the Baron may be arriving tonight at our little soiree.
Uh,
I wish to end up having a conversation, and you certainly ended up getting his attention. Perhaps it is your charm.
the Baron.
Oui.
Wait, Jesse Kane, that's the Baron's name, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, I didn't put two and two together.
And I'm thinking
That's
Alistair didn't in the moment either,
nope.
but he is now.
Interesting.
Well, you certainly ended up getting his attention. And I have no doubt we'll be able to speak more freely in private quarters. After
Yes.
all. So tell me, how does it feel to end up being talking to the most powerful, influential being in our city, and only finding out about it afterwards?
Feel like a right fool. I'm
As you
glad I
should.
didn't put a foot in my mouth.
Perhaps you did. I was not there.
Yes, it seemed to go well. It was a pleasant enough conversation.
Fantastic. Now, is there, now that you have a few more leads, now that you have the ability to converse with a few like-minded individuals, and the ability to end up, well, feeling like you can end up getting out of the basement and stop leaving yourself with just the company of musty old tomes, perhaps we can now end up making our escape and end up moving on. I have a few errands to run.
Sure. Would you like some company for this, or should I make my own way back?
I drove us here, and I told you I would get you back home safe and sound. It is my job, after all.
Oh, I'm flattered.
Don't
I
be.
would be. I would. It would be. I will join you then.
There is one thing I must end up doing beforehand, and then we will immediately head back.
Hmm.
Very important.
There is someone that I should speak to as well.
Your father.
Yes.
Fantastic. At least then I can say I relayed the message.
I'll meet you at the car and say I'll be there in probably 10 or 20 minutes.
But if that is the case, then I will end up getting my errand done in the time going. After all, it's getting late, and I think Shoppers ends up closing at midnight. So, alas, I must end up wishing you adieu.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. And Yvette, what errand is that exactly? You said shopping.
Need to get groceries. We're out of Brussels sprouts. We had milk starting to go bad, and we need a fresh loaf of bread. We also end up needing to make sure we have frozen vegetables at the very least, because if come everything that ends up happening, if I end up finding out that Chris ended up skipping past the vegetables one more time, I'm going to end up tasting it. At this point, every time I end up taking a momentary sip of his blood, all I can taste is the iron. Well balanced diet that child needs, if only for my own sanity.
If only for your own sanity, Miss LeBroy. We'll be back shortly, everyone, and we'll rejoin our coterie mates as they potentially have the Baron stopping by shortly. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Austin by Starlight. Episode 2, Yvette has made a short little jaunt to a nearby grocery store, leaving Alistair, for the moment, at the convention hall. Where, while most had kind of funneled out, including the person that Alistair grew to know is Baron Jesse Kane of the Anarchs in Austin. One of the last people to leave is his own father, William Knight, whom Yvette passed along a message saying that he only need call. Their number hasn't changed in 35 years. Instead, while being here, Alistair has decided that he's going to confront the man directly. Instead. Why not better talk in person rather than over the phone? Am I right, Mr. Knight?
As much as I don't want to, I guess the man wants to speak. I will hear his piece.
And you see that he is coming out the front door of this convention hall from the event that you and Yvette had attended to promote the growing support of Mr. Randall Pendham. And you see that he is kind of pulling on a bit of a jacket. He's collecting himself completely before going out into the night air. Now being, past midnight, going toward closer to 2 a.m. He seems a little lost in thought as he's walking by. Doesn't seem to pick up on you right away. What do you do?
After all these years, just going to walk right past me like you don't know me.
He seems a little taken aback for a moment and then sees that it's exactly you standing there. Oh. I hadn't realized that you had been here. Or that you had come.
Yes. A acquaintance of mine invited me, and I thought it would be a good way to spend the evening.
Oh, that's something she didn't mention. She didn't mention you were actually here.
How have you been, Father?
Father, like it's so formal. What, you can't say dad anymore like you did when you were a kid?
We grow out of things, grow into new ones.
Right, right. So, is that all you wanted to say to me? Standing out here in the dark?
Hmm. Miss LaCroix said that if I wanted to talk, all I needed to do was call. I figured since we are here in person.
Well, what is it that you wanted to say?
At this point, I don't know what to say to you. In some ways, I'm grateful for some of the things you've done. In other ways, I wonder how you could do some things.
Oh, like what? What are the sins that I've committed that you're so butthurt about?
It would do no good to air them.
This is always your problem, Alistair. You say you have beef with me about something, and yet you're not mad enough to come up to me and tell me that you fucking hate my guts.
That's the problem. I never wanted to hate you.
No, but you do. Doesn't make it any less true.
That's the thing. I never did hate you. I just resented some of the things you've done.
Like what? You still haven't told me, boy.
The pressure, the beatings, the abuse.
What
You think that's all
abuse?
is normal?
What abuse? I never hit you. Yes,
You don't
maybe I
remember.
exerted a little bit of pressure because I wanted my boy to be an upstanding and contributing individual in society.
Didn't I turn out that way?
I don't know. You tell me, Mr. Night Shift at the university.
I enjoy my classes at night. It's fulfilling. My side projects, which you've never really cared for, that take up my interest and time. My life is exactly the way I wished it to be.
Then what did I do wrong, then, by raising you like I did? Because it wasn't just me who raised you, it was your mother, too.
Yes. I never understood why she put up with some of the things that she did. She must love you terribly.
I'm a good provider. I actually go to my job and actually teach in front of other students and actually have to put together things to do in person. This whole sitting behind a computer to create your curriculum to present online, how is that fulfilling?
Things evolve, Father, including the way people learn, the way we teach. I still do things in person with my students. It's just not the way you would like it, the way you prefer things.
God forbid that I get in the way of what you prefer.
ST,
Mm-hmm.
it's 2025, right?
It is.
Do you remember the outbreak of COVID when everything started to move to online?
Sure.
That was an evolution. Things evolved. People realized that that things could be done different ways because of necessity. Some people prefer it that way. There are people that aren't good in classrooms, that learn better from one on one things, a curriculum that is tailored to them.
What's your point?
The point is, even though you don't like it, it works.
Well, thankfully, I can go back to the way that I like to do things, and you can do the things that you like to do. Your sister never complained.
She's probably scared. I
Scared
used to
of
try to.
what? Scared
You,
of what?
you never realized how you used to be. So demanding, so forceful, so angry when we didn't live up to your expectations. The
Yes,
forceful
because an
grab of an
F
arm.
is unacceptable. You fail a class, obviously. There are consequences for those kinds of things. You don't think that. You think I should praise you?
No, I've given up on seeking praise.
Then what is even the point of you stopping me right now? I'm trying to get home. Unless you have something worthwhile to say to me, I'm leaving, Alistair.
Go ahead, Father. I thought it was you that wanted to talk.
No. I just merely said to your friend Yvette that if you wanted to talk to me about something, that you get in contact with me. And now that you have nothing to say. You're wasting my time.
Ah, yes, your precious time. I won't waste any more of it then.
Good. Maybe go back to whatever it is that you do these nights, or days, or whatever it is that you work anymore.
Goodbye, Father. And I'll just kind of start chuckling and walk away.
Stupid brat. You hear him muttering under his breath as he's walking towards his car.
I suppose I would go and find a bench somewhere out front of this place and just take up a seat and wait for Yvette to come back from her grocery run.
And it isn't long. She doesn't take very long to stop by a nearby grocery, pick up a few things, and she comes back, pulls back around with the car, and and Yvette, you do see that he's sitting there on a bench, kind of just sitting there waiting. Maybe it looks like he's pondering, but who knows? But this does mean that the two of you can collect back together and go back to the Haven should you desire.
Yes, as she pulls up, I'll stand up and probably takes me a second to notice that she even pulled up. And I'll just simply get in the car and tell her, well, I didn't have to call home, but it didn't. Well, actually, it did go as exactly as I thought it would. That man is more of an ass than I even remembered.
Perhaps. And yet you ended up getting in contact with him, so at this point, you would end up saying your duty as a son, c'est fini. And now you can end up resting in peace. So, I do end up regretting that you end up having such a adversarial relationship with one who should be so close. But it is one that I understand.
I only feel bad for my sister. She still hasn't found her way into the world and figured out her place in it, as she still has to deal with him on a daily basis.
And somewhere out there, there is a individual who is not eating his Brussels sprouts. Ours is not a position to try and fix the world. That would be vanity. One can only end up hoping that they end up taking the time to actually try to end up worrying about those close by. You worry about those who are not in your reach. It is worry that goes absolutely nowhere and leaves you blind to what is right in front of you. But at the very least, now I cannot be called a liar, which I appreciate, Monsieur Knight. And while I'm sorry that your evening had to end on a sour note, I hope that the evening will end up continuing. She takes a quick look, double checks that all of the groceries are currently loaded up in the back of the car, thinks
Yep.
nothing of it, and begins to end up making back their way to the haven.
On the way back, there is one thing I'd like to do while I'm sitting in the passenger seat.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to shoot off an email to my sister because it has been a while since I contacted her
Mm-hmm.
and just ask how she's doing, how the life is going, how she's doing in university, if she's finally decided a major that she wanted to go after. You know, the normal things. Just a wellness check and reaching out in case she wants to maybe get. Well, I can't really exactly go out for dinner, but maybe a drink or something.
You don't get an immediate response,
Oh, I
but
didn't expect to. I had till the next following night, but
mm-hmm. But the message is sent. Checking in with your sister. And that brings us to the haven once more. The somewhat large and not really sprawling, but definitely spacious, haunted, quirky little place that you all call the haven now. The two of you kind of pull up into the driveway, and you see that a car is kind of parked that you've not seen before. It's kind of a. It looks a little vintage. That you haven't seen in this neighborhood before, and you see the individual that you know as Jesse Kane steps out of it and just kind of starts walking up towards you all.
Uh,
Bonsoir, Monsieur Kane.
Miss LaCroix? Mr. Knight?
Baron Kane, I apologize for not putting two and two together earlier. Forgive me if I was impudent.
Monsieur Knight wishes to end up clarifying that, of course, any interaction amongst the kind was in preservation of the masquerade, yet he is fearful that he may have overstepped. I wish to dissuade. I tried to end up telling him that one of your own age would already understand that even if it is a foolhardy attempt, as to end up preserving one's composure. After all, especially in a public venue, such things can be difficult.
And yet both things can be true. I'm not here to determine one way or the other. I am simply here to get to know the people who are living on my property.
It is a large property, so I imagine that can be quite difficult at times.
It helps when I know everyone. So, are you going to welcome me in?
So, no? Please do enter on your own accord, as you are welcome into the safe in this night.
Fantastic. And he does take up a position where he allows you to enter the house first before he does, kind of following you in.
I'm sure to end up opening and closing the door for him is expected of one trying to be hospitable.
I'll show him to the seating area.
Fantastic. So, he kind of takes a seat in one of the seats that you have sitting in this room. Kind of leans back in it comfortably, kind of crosses a leg over the other, kind of looking around and taking stock of his surroundings. And then kind of looks back at both of you. Is this it?
No.
Ah,
Madame Cosonesta and Deja are currently indisposed at this exact moment.
okay. Right. Yeah, because I did recall that those two were also kind of working out the arrangements here, right?
Oui.
Well, I appreciate the welcome. He hears that there's some kind of noise that goes on. What was that?
Well, at this exact moment, a horrible noise. I'm sure it will be followed soon with chairs flying about and the walls beginning to bleed.
Oh,
Yes, it is an interesting place. We are currently working to make it a little more hospitable. It is a little bare and, well, quite frankly, sometimes a little hostile. But we will make it our own.
it makes sense. It actually really makes sense. Starting to click as to why Mr. Ball wanted someplace to put things. I didn't think he'd take this place though. remember. Yeah, this is the one that's got some weird history.
Which we have only recently been illuminated upon. But she gestures for Monsieur Knight to take a seat.
I mean, you're not the first to have dwelled within this haven. We'll put it simply like that.
There were other kindred who ended up taking the precedence here.
Several. Most of which didn't like it and quickly moved out as soon as they could.
And what happened to the rest of them?
Well, they didn't stick around for the next night. They found other accommodations.
Of course. She looks at Alistair, implying for him to sit down.
Alistair will take a seat and probably start tidying up the books that are all around where he's normally sitting, trying not to be rude and make it look like there's a mess, that he kind of just got up and left his work.
Oh, you don't have to tidy up on my account.
Oh, it's force of habit.
What do I look like, a Ventru?
No.
Yvette
It's...
bites into her lower lip a little bit at that remark.
No, it is simply the way I was brought up. You want your place to look at your best for company, especially someone as esteemed as yourself.
Esteemed?
You are a baron, after all.
Simply because most others just cannot come to an agreement about anything. So, somebody had to step up and be an arbiter, and that is what I am. That's all that I am.
Of course.
I have my own this and that's that I attend to. But generally speaking, I have no business in other people's wants and desires. That's on them.
Baron, if I may. You said you knew more about the history of this place. Could you enlighten us to some of it, if it might help us in our endeavors to calm previous residents that are a bit unruly?
Well, here's the thing. Many have tried. To my knowledge, none have completely succeeded. Its tumultuous past has kind of leaked into the woodwork, if you can kind of make a bit of what is the word? An analogy. It permeates this place. It's not like you can just say, "Be gone, Satan," and it leave.
Of course. But you wish to end up getting to understand the individuals who currently take up residence.
Of course.
Yvette stands at the right hand of Alistair. I believe that now is your opportunity. We are at your discretion, of course, Baron Kane.
I knew a little bit about each of you, but I had not met you prior to tonight. Usually the first thing that people do is... Now, I'm no prince, I'm not demanding anything, I am simply stating it is the hospitable thing to do to say hello to your landlord.
Yes, we should have done that sooner. The first night here, we kind of had a disagreement with the house, and it took
Ah,
a bit more of our time and research to try to understand things.
that can actually be forgiven. I am actually very understanding of the plight of this house. As I said, you are not the first tenants that we've had here. But let's lay some ground rules. You don't shit in my bed, I won't shit in yours. If you make a mess, you clean it. If you cause, for instance, a masquerade breach, you deal with it in a proper and timely manner. And rent is due on the first of the month.
And what would rent entail in this particular case, Ben and Ken?
You volunteer for a job. That's it.
Understood?
It's a job of my choosing. Because I can't guarantee what it is that we'll need doing every single week, but that is the way that things have run for a very long time. So long as we're understanding of that, I think we'll get along swimmingly.
Your terms seem generous and acceptable in my eyes. And I'll look up at Yvette.
Early on, you ended up saying you don't defecate in my head. On my dinner plate, I won't defecate upon yours. But that does end up leaving a conversation that you and I perhaps should end up clarifying, specifically when it ends up coming down to this evening, as we apparently have a shared interest at the very least to discuss.
I think we all have a bunch of common interests that we should discuss. Because Mr. Knight here has, on more than one occasion, said that he is interested in rarities.
Yes.
That is to be expected amongst Tamir, is it not?
Yes, it's very much expected. I have expected you to call me out or catch on when I said typical. Maybe you need to keep a keener eye on the things that are said around you, Mr. Knight. But, yes, I am quite familiar with how Tremere function, and how they act. Most of them get along here fairly well. The few that I know, they're a little less, how shall I say it? They tend to want to say hello to the the Hecata of the city more than they want to say hello to me. Mostly because they're far more interested in who knows what. Maybe you can enlighten me on that, Mr. Knight. What do the Tremere do around here?
What would my character know?
That would be an intelligence and occult.
Would my specialty in blood magic apply?
No.
Okay.
This is more about people than it is about any kind of magic.
Oh, you know what? I'll spend the willpower to reroll a couple of dice.
Okay.
Didn't help.
You and Wilfred, over the time that he's spent with you, are definitely the most bookish of the Tremere that you know. You know that there are others who have other interests. You have heard vaguely that this doc person that's maybe runs a little bit more black market than anything else is amongst the Tremere as well. But she's from San Antonio, so that's maybe outside of the wheelhouse of Austin. But out of the several of you, it's really you, Mr. and Wilfred, maybe one or two others, and that's about it. What they get up to could be anybody's business. Or anybody's guess, really.
I can only speak for some of the pursuits of me and my sire, but our interests are mostly academic in nature. I couldn't speak for the rest of the few that I know of. You probably know more of them than I would. But I do know that they everybody has their own things that they pursue.
Of course.
At least.
We're anarchs. Makes sense, right?
Yes. I'm sorry that I am not as knowledgeable as would be useful to you.
Well, I suspected as much. You seemed like the type that was a little bit more of a homebody when it came to the Tremere. You just kind of gave me that sort of feeling, if that makes sense.
Yes. And most nights I do have my nose in a book, trying to better and understand more.
As I say, rather typical. That explains your interest in the rarities. That's your somewhat keen eye found on my person, and your somewhat keen ear had perked up to when it came to the mentioning of my own possessions. So, you're average, Mr. Knight. I like average. It means it's predictable. Now, Miss LaCroix. That's a name from quite a far away, isn't it?
Well, I do end up finding myself unaccustomed to the ways of America. And yet, I find it oddly fascinating.
Huh. The French accent says that you're not originally from the States. How long have you been here, Miss LaCroix?
No, I see. I imagine that this would be probably my fourth or fifth year. Things got a little hazy due to circumstances that are not worth the tedium.
Wow. Because I've also heard of the name LaCroix.
And Yvette kind of tries to end up keeping a calm demeanor at this point, but there is that point of her that is going, here it comes.
Make me a composure subterfuge.
Could I make a politics roll to see if I recognize what he's talking about?
Be an intelligence politics, but it's kind of outside of your wheelhouse, so it's probably going to be a pretty big difficulty. But you can try.
Okay. No point in not trying.
You can certainly try.
That's not terrible for Derek dice.
No, you have no idea what that even means.
It's fine.
Yvette, you're pretty solid. You can feel yourself wincing a little bit, but you catch it just in time. You're not sure if he caught it or not. But you definitely know that you're pretty solid in keeping yourself in a composed manner. Yeah, but
So what is it that you... Was it simply my accent and last name you wish to know about?
well, I wish to know more about you specifically. We didn't-
Whatever questions you have, I will try and answer with brevity.
Well, brevity's not necessary. I have all night. So, I'm curious. Who was your sire?
Jacques Baudot Lacroix, near childer of Miss Yvonne Lacroix, near childer of Himalas Ronos Lacroix, the childer of... Yeah. She pauses for a second. Like she's trying to get all the names straight. Oui. Marcellus Lacroix, a childer of Sebastian Lacroix.
Ah. Okay. It's distantly removed, but okay.
I could have ended up changing it, but then it would have been more trouble than it's worth.
Just don't say that name around Santos.
And yet, it is my name.
That one you're gonna want to keep a tight lip on.
Merci.
She's not exactly a fan of Ventru in general. She's even less a fan of princes and their lineage. So, you don't have a last name. Around Santos, anyway. But if enough people find out, you're gonna have an even harder time around this city, kid.
I expected as much when they ended up coming to the city.
Luckily for you, I have no real beef with Ventru. In fact, I get along with them fairly well, the ones I do know. Mr. Ball is definitely a very valuable, insightful business partner.
So that is the relationship between you and Mr. Bob?
Yes.
Fabia. Is there anything else that I can clarify for you, Monsieur Kane?
Well, I'm curious. What is your specialty? What do you do?
She slowly reaches into her jacket pocket, places the gun on the table in front of him, and takes a step back, opening up her shirt, revealing little more than her slight coverage, showcasing no vest, gestures towards the firearm.
A marksman.
No. By all means, try. You have fired a gun before, have you not, Monsieur Kane?
I have. Are you sure?
If you take my word upon it, then so be it. If you wish to end up putting it to a test, by all means. My life is such as it is under your word anyway.
I don't want that thing going off in this neighborhood.
Fabia.
I'll take your word
Intelligence.
for it.
Intelligence, I value it. Wait, so. She grabs hold of the Glock and ends up putting it back in its holster under her arm and buttons up her jacket again. And he would have seen that distinctive tattoo of Yvette's at that point.
That snake. That is some interesting ink, though.
I'm glad you appreciate it. It was my sire's gift.
For your embrace, I take it.
Oui. Shameful to say that when one is gold, tattoos still take.
You were a ghoul prior.
I would hazard to guess that amongst kindred life I am probably the most experienced in this coterie.
Interesting.
As far as this, it was his way of celebrating a particular challenge involving some of what they call ministry. I think for him it was a way of keeping a trophy that, well, since he could not end up keeping the ashes.
When you say dealt with ministry, how do you mean? Is this before you came to the States?
No. It was when I was still a ghoul, I was responsible for providing services like you have seen tonight, remaining a guard for various individuals, including the interests of my sire.
Mm-hmm.
Ministry, as you know, have a tendency to find their ways into such places, and he took exception to it. Ergo, he ended up making sure I did as well. When the situation was handled and the threat removed, he wished to end up bragging about it and used my body as the billboard.
Never thought of that myself. That's a interesting way to use a ghoul.
His will my hand, as he would often tell. So when he said he slain, he wanted everybody to know his tool, what his tool can do.
And are you still involved with your sire now?
I keep an eye out, thinking he may show up someday. I would end up considering it a unpleasant circumstance. I do not end up seeing eye to eye with him, and I fled here in this anarch-free state into America because I hoped that it would end up finding a better life than what I would have expected in the Camarilla, away from my sire. After all, if you are aware of Ventru sires, they can be overbearing, to say the least. He gives Alistair a not so subtle look once over.
Well, welcome to Austin.
Your hospitality is appreciated, and while the answers are that you got, I have no doubt, are uncomforting, at the very least you can end up trusting me to be honest with you.
If there's anything that I appreciate more than the occasional oddity, it's someone who shows me the courtesy of the truth. I don't take kindly to liars.
And yet our existence is that of lies. What an oddity. But again, you said you appreciated oddities.
I understand that our existence is made up of a web of lies, which is why I stress the importance of the truth. Because when someone's caught out in a lie, it usually means a lot of trouble for the person involved, as well as those around them. And I'd rather avoid all of that.
As you wish.
Well, this has been pleasant.
I hope to end up having a discussion with you sometime in the near future as to what your plans are for the city. I am told you are a man of character. I would like to end up seeing it as a future endeavor.
Yes.
Yes, I suspect we will be intermingling more frequently than either of us could hope.
Well, to put it simply, I've been here long enough to have grown roots. and those roots have thus sprouted into saplings themselves. And I like to think that each of those then branches out and nurtures something of their own. In the kind world, it's usually growing up in education, for instance, and getting a good education and the like. Having things accessible in the city that promote culture and the oddities. And they say that Austin is weird. I like to keep it that way. Just intriguing enough to be strange, but not overly as such. Do you know what I mean?
All Americans are strange to me.
As a French woman, I'm sure is strange to us. I've seen all sorts, but yes, to put it simply, I want this city to prosper. And if you think you could do that, and help in doing that, then by all means, make proposals. Give me your ideas. We'll see what we can make work. You scratch my back, I scratch yours.
If that is the way you wish it, then that is how it shall be.
And if it pays the rent, then more power to you. 2 birds, 1 stone.
One can hope.
What about you, Miss LaCroix? What do you think about Austin?
I have seen it only for a small bit of time, but from what I understand of it, it is a crime-ridden, back-dealing city where those end up moving about wishing to flaunt themselves may do so without hesitation. Understand my perspective. I have been introduced to Miss Pax, Miss Deja, and Mr. Alastair. They are all oddities, but when I end up coming in, the first thing that end up being put in my hand or being offered unto me was that of a weapon of questionable origin, whereas I keep most of my own here registered. Some of us live hiding shadows and fearful of sirens. I have no wish to end up living as such. I have every wish to live several lifetimes and several lives. And for once, I would like, while I still can, I would like to end up continuing to experience life as, well, let us just say when you are as in the employ of the Camarilla, such as myself, you do not have the option to just have a normal life. I'd like to at least pretend that I had a chance at it, if only for a moment.
I can appreciate that.
It is an oddity, and seems appropriate to Austin.
It's very appropriate. And Mr. Knight, your thoughts on all of this? What the city is and what you could do for it?
Well, I already tried to change what I can in my sphere. Hopefully, that sphere of influence grows eventually. But as of yet, I'm dealing with young minds and trying to make the next generation better than the previous.
An educator. Fascinating.
For machinations of the city, that I could not say. Anything within my power I should do, but I am not that much of a schemer.
Well, no one's asking you to be a schemer.
Should I ever come up with an idea, though, I will bring it to you.
If you feel that your contribution is to just be a teacher, then by all means. Just don't break the masquerade. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to do something I really don't want to.
Yes. That would be unfortunate.
Because I would hate to have to do that, Mr. Knight. I would hate to have to send you after all of your students. Don't make me do it. Alright?
That will be an endeavor that I will always aspire to. I know Miss LaCroix said this, but is there anything else that you wish to know about me?
I think I know what all I need to know about you, Mr. Knight. You're a pretty easy book to read.
Always wondered what my title would be.
Well, when you come up with an answer, I'll let you know if it's the same one I'm thinking of. I'm sure you all have other business that you need to be getting to. I'm not gonna take up all of your time.
How considerate.
I'll stand and get ready to show him out.
And he stands from his seat as well. If you need anything, I'm sure you know how to get in contact with Mr. Ball, and he'd relay anything you need from me to me.
Get in contact with Monsieur Ball.
He's probably the one who's going to be most actively involved in what you got going on here. Unless you have other sires or things like that that you're actually talking to. But he's
No.
He's the one who kind of set this place up for you all to kind of cohabitate in. I'd hate to remove him from the picture.
As would I. Thank you very much for giving us your time, Baron Kane. I hope that we can have a mutually beneficial relationship in the future.
I hope so as well. I like seeing new faces. Au revoir.
Yes, Baron, thank you for your time. I look forward if we ever get another chance to talk about books and oddities.
Oh, trust me. If you find something interesting, I'll probably know about it.
Yes. I would expect nothing less.
And you all have a good night. And he goes toward the door to leave.
I'll open the door for him.
And he goes out to his car, starts the engine, and is off. Leaving the two of you by yourselves once more.
Well, she finally, once the door is closed, he goes to a chair, sits down, and kind of lays back. There's just this, oh god, that was a day, expression upon Yvette's face. She kind of more stares at the ceiling, taking a moment. Monsieur Knight, any questions from you, then?
I think I just have a lot to absorb from our escapades. I don't know of a question right now, but I was at least right about one thing. Tonight definitely was not boring.
So, you have to consider an answer for Monsieur Kane?
Yes.
Perhaps you are trying too hard to find yourself in books. Spend more time in front of a mirror, perhaps.
It's an interesting thought. Well, while I think about this, don't want your groceries to spoil. You probably have somewhere else to be. After all, it was a long night for you. I apologize that I am not suited to help you in your duties, but thank you again for the invitation. It was a most enlightening evening.
Well, at this exact moment, my biggest concern is simply end up getting back and getting groceries in the refrigerator before the milk begins to spoil. The little things we end up doing to preserve one's masquerade.
And I believe
Yes.
that is where we're going to end tonight's session. Reflecting upon what it is, that little things that you do to preserve the masquerade. Thank you both for playing.
No worries.
Thank you for having us.
Kind of a little bit of a highlight episode, and welcome Vancouver. So hello. They said hello. And but yeah, thank you guys for playing. You guys are great. It's a bit of a spotlight episode on the two of you, and got to meet Baron Kane.
I like him.
I'm glad.
So far, he's been a lot of carrot, but he's showed us the stick.
Isn't that the way of it, though?
Pretty much.
Well, with that being said, there's no stains. Everybody's good.
Be thankful for the small things.
Next is experience. So if both of you get one each for having showed up, woohoo. Out of the two of you, who had moved the plot?
I kind of moved personal plots, but I don't know. What do you think, Derek? Did you move any of your personal plots, or?
Yes, I did.
Mm.
I was specifically end up getting in contact and starting to end up finding the relationships between kindred and more of the high society contacts that I might end up having, and trying to figure out how all that interplaces, which puts me one step further to closing on my ambition.
Ooh.
Yeah, I did about the same with my ambition and trying to track down another lead.
Yep, you both were kind of working towards your ambitions a little bit today. So if you haven't already, you can recover a willpower for that. But with both of you kind of, you know what? I'm gonna give it to both of you, just because you both moved your personal stories today.
You are a generous DM. Thank you. Would you say I learned a little bit more about Yvette? Would you say that I accomplished my desire?
How was your desire worded exactly?
Learn at least one thing about the coterie.
Yeah. For a desire, when you want to learn something, make it about a specific person next time, not necessarily about a group of people, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So if you're wanting to, learn a secret about Yvette, put that as it specifically, not just about the coterie, because that's
too broad.
Still a little broad.
Okay. Copy that.
But there's that. And then who had our best scene?
I'm gonna end up giving that to Monsieur Knight, because I was laughing my ass off when I'm like, this is gonna be the awkward father-son moment. I love this. The dying inside moment. I'm like, yes, I am cringing in entertainment.
Yeah, that wasn't bad, but I really liked the scene between me and the Baron.
Oh, yeah, the one where you had solo.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
but thank you, Derek.
Both votes are for Alistair, so Alistair gets them. Gets that one. Best line.
I liked my line about not knowing my the title of my book, of like my personality, but I can't honestly point to one that was like, yeah, that was the line of the episode. Like, we didn't have a Dana moment. So, do you have any that you stood out for you, for Derek?
What gave it away? My haircut?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
I was good.
That was good.
If I had a say in this, I would say Yvette for the fucking Call of Duty and Minecraft shit she was pulling with Chris.
That's true too. I'll give it to Yvette. That was good.
It was going to Yvette anyway, but there's that.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't think we have a mod for tonight in order to. Otherwise, the poll would have started already. But, I'm gonna throw a quick poll. I can't even talk today. Quick poll for who maybe had our audience favorite. And it's only gonna be like a minute long, so Let's do that. And Alistair. Gonna do 1 minute. Oops.
I know a way we can kill that time.
Oh, yeah.
A little Q&A. Do you have any questions for us about our characters and what we did tonight, or maybe even if anybody in the audience does?
Well, I don't personally have much, but I still have a lot of work to do in the background about all of this stuff, so get your votes in,
You should have
guys.
enough seeds to work with.
Yeah, I have some stuff to work with now. I'm glad
Yeah.
for it, because I needed stuff to work with, so thank you guys
If you
for
ever
being
need
present.
if you ever need anything more about me to like flesh out something in my backstory, I tried to do as much as I could, but I can't foresee what you need.
No,
If
that's...
you ever need me to do anything, just let me know and I'll write it up and give you
Oh, no.
details.
Yeah, that's fine. If I think of something, because I never can think of anything on the spot. If I think of something, then I usually be like, "Hey, blah 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 blah." Hey,
Okay.
Yvette steals it with 4 votes.
Yay.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Congrats, Yvette.
There we go. Merci beaucoup.
And then Derek's got his things that he's doing tomorrow for his channel. What you got coming up?
We might end up having some drawing. And if we're not booked for a commission, I might also actually decide to end up doing some VtM games. You know, I feel
But-
like we're gonna have to do a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
We'll find out. It depends on how things play out. Usually I end up taking commissions on Thursdays, but I don't know. I think I might need to change it up just a little bit. We'll have to find out. Guess you'll have to find out. Coming tomorrow at Macabre Derek on Twitch TV at
Yep.
7 o'clock Central Standard Time to see how the night progresses.
Yes, we love Derek and all of the content that he puts on Twitch. It's all horror themed or video games. You never know which. I mean, you have a pretty solid idea which, but you know, it can change.
I have no solid ideas. Are you kidding? I'm erratic as all hell. One of the hardest things for me to do is just keep a consistent schedule. Been doing so for 2 years, and I'm not sure if I'm doing it right.
Yeah, I think you do. You're on every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so that's consistent enough. But that does it for us here on Twitch, and we're very close to hitting 400 followers. We're going to be celebrating 500 when we reach that. And then we also have YouTube, which is also very close to 100 subs. So if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to YouTube, because we get that custom URL from YouTube itself when we hit that. So be sure to get to that point. And yeah, thank you guys so much for coming by and watching. And we shall see you all next time. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.